You know, I hate the term pocket watching, only since it seems like it's been normalized to really watch somebody's pockets and obsessed with what money this person is making. Before I get into this video and what I'm about to say, let me start off with, if I was any of the individuals I mentioned and I got offered the contracts that they did, I went over it with my agents, I thought it was the best thing, I'm taking it. You offer that to me, you think this is what I'm worth, and I believe it's the best offer that I could get, or maybe it exceeds my expectations, I don't blame them for taking whatever money's on the table. I want to put that out there, all right? With that said, let's put ourselves in the perspective of an NBA GM. I'm going to share with you my own philosophies when it comes to constructing a roster in conjunction with contracts, extensions, things of that nature. Which gets into the very recent news of Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Alperen Sengun, and Jalen Johnson all signing huge, massive contract extensions after being on their old rookie contracts. Aaron Gordon got a huge extension as well. Obviously, he's not on his rookie deal. I'm going to get into him later. I want to focus on the young players and the future moving forward. Let's start with Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. So Jalen gets a 3-year, $106 million extension. Alperen Sengun gets a 5-year, $185 million extension. This is a perfect example of investing in your future properly. I would do this if I'm the GM. I'm going over my roster. Definitely, especially Alperen Sengun. I think most of us would agree that he is the corner piece that they would have to build their team around, the most versatile overall. I think he could become like a Nikola Jokic in the future. He has the playmaking, the post skills, the intangibles, the IQ offensively to become that. The only thing that he would have to work on is that shot, that three-point shooting. And this is me going off the eye test, right? Because, for example, I know statistically last year he averaged about 5 assists, but when I watch him play, he's really great at reading the defense and hitting guys open. He's a player that you could literally play your whole offense through, and he'll find guys and hit them in the right spot. So I don't even care about the 5 assists that I see. And the three-point shot, get it back to that, he can make it. I know he has about 72 he made last year, which is just under a game. That's not that bad. But when I watch him, it doesn't look like a strength of his. You see what I'm saying when I compare those two? Now, of course, he's 22, coming off his 3rd year in the NBA, where he averaged all career highs of 21 points per game, the 5 assists I was mentioning, 9 rebounds, giving you a steal. I expect his overall game to continue improving. No question there. Let's get into his teammate, Jalen Green, who is an absolute bucket. Proven that he could give you 20 points. Basically, he did it for the last 2 years. The only issue I have with Green, and I would give him the extension, right? It's just I don't like the pairing of him and Fred VanVleet. I never believed in having 2 guys in your backcourt, especially if they're considered undersized, and they both score the ball. They're both more scoring-minded guards at that position as opposed to somebody who's naturally a point guard. This goes again to the whole statistics. I can see Fred VanVleet gives me 8 assists, but his natural side of play instinctively is not pass first. I'm going to set up all of my teammates and I'm just going to be cool with taking 5 or 7 shots in the game and let everyone else eat. He's more get out of my way. Let me put the team on my back if I have to. Y'all ain't playing good. I'm going to keep shooting and we're going to get in this game my way or the highway. That's kind of a Fred VanVleet mentality. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You saw how valuable he was with the Toronto Raptors and being that scorer off the bench on the championship team. So I'm not trying to say his style of play has no fit in the NBA. I'm just saying with a young guy like a Jalen Green, I don't know how that works. And if you look at the history of the NBA and backcourts who had 2 scoring-minded guards, it doesn't usually end up well. The only one that I'm sure someone is mentioning right now in their head is Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But understand, Klay's a 6'6", 6'7" guard who played off the ball a lot. He wasn't somebody that just needed the ball in his hands to really be effective at his game. Overall, this is a whole other topic. I don't want to get too sidetracked. They also have Reed Sheppard at that guard position as well, who looks like another good shot creating player that could score you some points in the making for that team, as well as a playmaker. Perhaps we'll see. However, when it comes to the 2 spot, Jalen Green is #1 priority. Even if you put Fred VanVleet there, Reed Sheppard, at least as of right now, Jalen Green got to be the future moving forward. All right. Now let's get into another guard that got a huge extension, which is Jalen Suggs. He signed a 5-year, $151 million contract. The Orlando Magic were one of the best defensive teams last year. Jalen Suggs at that guard position, as I was saying, very tenacious defender, plays with a high intensity, scrappy, and can score a little bit if needed, though that's not really his calling card. I wonder what the mind frame is of the Orlando Magic with this contract moving forward. I watched a lot of Jalen Suggs, or I'll say a bit, in college. He looked like he was going to be a star point guard. I kind of saw a little bit of Chris Paul when I was watching him. Someone who just runs the offense smoothly, doesn't make too many mistakes, doesn't force the game, plays a lot of defense, could dish the ball, find open teammates. So I was a little bit surprised seeing his first few years in the NBA, 3 years, where it didn't look like anything that stood out much, just looked like a regular player. Especially the playmaking part, to be more specific. That's what really caught my eye when I watched him before we got into the NBA, which is why I'm thinking either Orlando Magic see him as someone who's going to play a much bigger role moving forward within this team, or they are banking on the development of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner so much that they think this is an integral piece. We just got to keep the core group around these two players and continue developing what we believe is going to be a championship team in the next few years. If I had to bet, I'm guessing it would be the latter. I saw Paolo Banchero just this offseason on ESPN's First Take saying that he sees the Orlando Magic as a top team in the East, and he felt like everybody was sleeping on the team, not realizing how good they truly were from their own perspective. To sum up my opinion, one of two things are going to happen. A, we're going to look back and say, man, the Orlando Magic did a really good move locking up Jalen Suggs. He was the third or fourth option on the team to play a huge role in advancing them to become a championship contender. Or B, whether they become a championship team or not, it's going to be looked at as a hard contract to move if he stays relatively the same as a player right now, and given the skill set that he shows, which is not bad at all. The talent he has will always be something that's serviceable within the NBA. I'm just thinking long term, how does that look? And what will the value of it be given his current contract? Moving along, let's talk about Jalen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks, who signed a 5-year, $150 million extension. The Atlanta Hawks have nothing to lose at this point. They just traded away DeJounte Murray. The key assets they got back were a couple of draft picks and a young player in Dyson Daniels. They traded away several draft picks in the first place in order to get DeJounte. They just had the first pick in this year's draft. They're just at a point where they got to build a foundation. Jalen Johnson had, for him, what was a breakout year, about 16 points, 8 rebounds, which was just his third season in the NBA. In the worst case scenario, even if he doesn't get any better than this is not a bad contract, period, if he's able to keep continuing what he's been doing as of lately. For further context, Julius Randle and DeAndre Ayton are both roughly making about $30 million annually. I assume when Randle's player option kicks in, he's going to opt out, try to get more. DeAndre Ayton, I think that's fair as well. Basically, what I'm saying, if Jalen Johnson could stay in between that output with those players that I just mentioned, it'll be fine. This is something that the Hawks just got to do. I think he's also the best player they have moving forward with their young core. Like, if I'm looking at their roster and seeing who really excites me the most with potential, he would be the guy that stands out. To end things off, I'll bring up Aaron Gordon now, who's the inverse of all of these players that I talked about and situations. He's not on a rookie contract, as we know. Veteran player, has been with the Denver Nuggets for several years. They have the bird rights to sign him. The Denver Nuggets don't have really cap room to sign a big free agent, nor do they need to at this point. Again, they're a championship squad. It's all about extending that championship run, trying to get much more as possible. This is where my philosophy kicks in, where if you have a team that is already at that point and you got a ring, do everything you can to keep this team together, the core moving forward. You want to extend the run as much as possible. Aaron Gordon signs a 4-year, $133 million contract. I completely understand why they had to do that. All right, hit me up in the comment section now and let me know what you think about these new contracts going on with the NBA. What is your own philosophies when it comes to signing players if you were in that seat of being the GM, management, trying to construct the roster for the future? I would love to know your take and what you think of mine that I described in this video. And as always, salute for listening. Peace.